They're in the gate.
They're in the gate.
A nose bumper there.
Welcome to In the Gate, ESPN's Thoroughbred Racing podcast. I'm Barry Abrams. Babe Ruth changed baseball. Hank Aaron perfected it. Bobby Orr changed hockey. Wayne Gretzky perfected it. In much the same way, Roone Arledge, the late president of ABC Sports and ABC News, changed the nature of sports storytelling, made it much more character and personality driven. You might say that Kevin Costner has perfected that art as well. And we'll talk about that as well as another of his sports, Thoroughbred Racing, as we welcome Kevin Costner to In the Gate. Let's start with the movie. It's about a high school coach who has trouble finding commonality with his students, finds it in running, and they create a powerhouse track program. How does that theme, the themes from that movie, fit with the other sports movies that you've made over the years?
Well, I don't know exactly how it fits, but I think, it's not so much that he took students and made a powerhouse. He was dropped into a community where he didn't speak the language, where the kids, for the most part, their parents picked crops. They're migrant farm workers. The only thing that was growing in the town was the prison. There was nothing where these kids were headed. And one man comes in and showed these kids, gave them a chance, an opportunity to maybe think something that they never thought was possible, like running. Their parents didn't even want them to do it. Their parents needed them to go pick in order to put food on the table. But this coach was able to show them that they could run. And these kids who had nothing going for them suddenly found themselves champions, and not champions just of their league, but state champions of California. That's not an easy thing to become a state champion, and they did it 9 times. And to know that this is a true story, it was just kind of the best American story there is for me. I mean, it's more American than apple pie or baseball. The idea that your parents will work in a crummy job at hours and conditions that are impossible, just so their children could have a better shot. That's American.
Jim Wilson, who directed Dances with Wolves, your breakthrough movie.
I directed that movie. He produced it.
He directed a documentary about Lafitte Pinkai, which you had narrated, and he's discussed that on the show, and he's discussed another racing movie that he did, a documentary 50 to 1, about Mind That Bird, the '09 Derby winner. What affection do the two of you share for horse racing?
Well, Jim really loves it, and he loved it when we first met. I never understood anything about it. One time he called me up in the middle of the night and said, "Hey, we have a chance to buy a horse." I said, "Well, what color is it?" I mean, that was really about all I knew. He stayed with racing, and so I've been able to, through him, understand a little more. But my brush with racing are where most people's is, I think, that aren't, let's say, racing enthusiasts, which is occasionally these horses come along and they capture the imagination of the American public. That's me. And long before my time, that little horse Seabiscuit is a word that's just so mythological in the way it's talked about. And then I read the book and I understood. But when I saw Secretariat win, I remember weeping. I don't know why. And I've seen it now in documentaries and in slow motion, and heard the same call, that he's suddenly 32 lengths in front of everyone. And I can weep during that. That horse just somehow transcends almost everything. This horse's desire to win, so much better than the rest. A horse of the century. Secretariat was something that I'll never forget that moment. And I have other indelible sports moments, but none any bigger than that. And yet it's not a sport that I watch.
Jack Nicklaus said he cried during that moment as well, so you're certainly not alone.
No, I don't think that I was.
You have often in your sports movies played lovable, kind of past their prime characters.
Yeah.
Horse racing's often been viewed that way, as a very lovable but past its prime kind of sport, past the 50s, 60s, and 70s heyday. Now, you obviously have learned the trick about how to make that character work. What does racing need to do to kind of revitalize itself in the same way?
You know, I feel the same about boxing, to be quite honest. It feels to me, I remember used to being very revved up about boxing. And I don't care for it now at all. Obviously, they're still making these big paydays. Something's working. I'm a UFC guy. I love the drama of it. When it comes to sports, you know, how do you racing, how would that be jazzed up? I don't know, but I do know that when a horse is on its second leg of the Triple Crown, I'm watching. And again, I'm not that perfect audience, but I'm watching. There's something about the tradition of racing, of what happens. I'm very stirred when I see those still pictures of Churchill Downs. The architecture is somehow fits so perfectly. It's almost like it's been there forever. You know, I love the idea that the horse won't race without the goat with him. You know, I love Mickey Rooney involved, you know, from those early movies in the sport. To that moment, even the Black Stallion. Remember, he looks under, he goes, "Here comes the Iceman," right? You know, there's something about a horse's desire to win. The first band I was in was called Roving Boy. It was about a horse that was racing, and actually in a two-horse race down, I think it was in Del Mar, actually a match race, raced and threw itself across the line in its desire to win and broke both back legs at the same time and had to be put down, Roving Boy. And that was the name of the first band I was in.
What is it about the power of sports, like you've just described in a number of different sports? What is it about the power of sports storytelling that works so well for you in particular and in general?
Well, I think that there is so much drama that comes with winning and losing. And I think some of the movies I've been associated with haven't been about the winning. And that's equally as powerful. You know, we like Rocky because he doesn't necessarily win. He just went the distance. You know, Bull Durham, I don't get to the big leagues, but there's a certain heroism in a guy that will go hit a home run record in minor league, an obscure record in anonymity just to have it. You know, in Tin Cup, I don't win the U.S. Open. I get a 12 on the last hole. But you remember that kind of heroism, you know, sports courage about somebody who's going to be exactly who they want. And it go, so, oh, do you want to be the winner with the guy with the sweater wrapped around his neck? Or do you want to be Roy? You want to be Tin Cup, who will go for it in front of 1 million people and keep hitting the ball in the water? And everybody raises their hands. I want to be Roy. Because you want to be original. You want to be a rascal. That's part of being American, the guy who goes for it. And, you know, that's why 50-to-1 shots are always going to, we're always going to be tempted to bet on them, because the rest of us are 50-to-1. Most of us are 50-to-1. Most of us are 100-to-1. I was in my life. There was this isn't supposed to happen, what's happened to me in my career. I was making $3.20 an hour out of college, you know, taking out trash. And the difference was it was movie trash, and that's what I wanted. It didn't figure to happen, the Oscars, the stuff. But, you know, America was a gamble even for our ancestors. It was a 100-to-1 shot leaving Europe. Would the boat even make it? Would I be killed by the weather, by the Native Americans that were here? Would I be killed because whatever? America is a 100-to-1 shot. America's a miracle.
The new movie is called McFarland USA, out this month. Remember, you can follow me on Twitter at @BAbramsVoice or on Facebook at Barry Abrams Voice. That's In the Gate for this week. I'm Barry Abrams. We'll see you next time.